Well, hello YouTube, it's me, Fortmaster, and welcome back to another film theory reaction. So, the complete lore of the Backrooms solved. What's next? When it comes to these analog horror series on YouTube, there are very few that I follow firsthand. The vast majority of the ones that I follow behind are, from lore videos like this, just because while I try, I don't have much of a mind for it. And when I say that, I'm talking about more like, oh, watching it, and then I see something out of the corner of my eye, it's like, oh, it's part of a URL. I'll look at this later. And then I'll just forget about it as I'm watching the rest of the video and never follow up on it. So with that in mind, if Game Theory has completed the story of the Backrooms, I wonder, are they going to release any more videos for it? Or is it essentially just over now? See, shall we? Oh no. This doesn't look like one of the bacteria monsters.
The lore! I have to show you the lore!
Of course, the lore. Oh, don't be such a baby.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, the show that knows that going on to YouTube can be like no clipping into the back rooms. You're minding your own business when suddenly it's days later and you have no idea how you've watched so many padlock reviews.
A very, very beefy and very robust lock.
Oh, would you
look at the shackle
lawyer on that baby? Shout out to Lockpicking Lawyer, by the way, for teaching me way more about locks than I thought a human brain could consume. Anyway, today we're returning to the mono yellow walls and ceaseless hum-buzzing fluorescence of the back rooms. In case you need to catch up, The Backrooms is an analog horror series here on YouTube.com created by indie filmmaker Kane Pixels. The initial video Kane uploaded in January of 2022 absolutely exploded in popularity, gaining over 43 million views and becoming the 7th most watched video on YouTube of the entire year, all thanks to its unique atmosphere, clever scares, and fantastic production quality.
I will have to say, I think my favorite Backrooms video was the one about the crab rave, which Kane did confirm actually does happen in the Backrooms. If you don't believe me, I'll show you.
It was also built for theorists like us, filled to the brim with awesome ideas and hidden lore for us to decode. In fact, towards the end of the year, Steph and I even gave Kane Pixels a Streamy Award to honor him for all his incredible work.
This is a box that was delivered to my house.
So, Kane Pixels, here. Did I just no clip into the back rooms? Kane, I went to the back rooms and I got you this.
I'm just so honored to be accepting this. So I guess really the only thing I can say right now is thank you.
But now here we are, 1 year later from that initial upload, now with a story that spans 4 decades of time and 15 videos, plus a few secret videos mixed in. The community has come up with a ton of ideas to explain this thing. Everything from alternative realities colliding to the Backrooms being an incarnation of the ancient Egyptian afterlife.
I remember that one.
Here is that the world that we see in the Backrooms is some sort of simulation, like a giant video game or the Matrix. What we know of as the real world is the topmost layer of that simulation, but below the surface, there's an infinite procedurally generated world of unused and cut content. Stuff that either didn't fit or just wasn't good enough to make the cut for the real world. And while I still believe that to be the case, today I wanted to take a step back and reset. The Backrooms is a tricky series to talk about. Nothing is presented in chronological order, and things tend to jump back and forth in time, with some earlier videos referencing events from later videos that haven't technically happened yet. Heck, the very first video that Kane ever uploaded is currently one of the last ones in the timeline. So today, I wanted to do something a little different. I wanted to sit down and make a definitive timeline of exactly what's happened and when, so we can get ourselves a clear overview of everything that's going on in this giant mystery that Kane's crafting. And in doing this, in seeing what fits where, and more importantly, what doesn't fit where, we'll be able to learn a lot more about this story. Spoiler alert, friends, there appears to be a massive time loop we're dealing with, and we might just be witnessing the collapse of an entire universe. Jump into those hazmat suits and hold on to the red guideline, friends. We're going in. The very first event that we see in the series actually comes from the most recent upload as I'm writing this script, Overflow. This video takes place on August 7th, 1972, as we can see thanks to the signature of a man named Ivan Beck. Over the course of of this 2-minute video, we also hear a radio broadcast about the Lend-Lease Agreement, which happened between the United States and USSR in, you guessed it, 1972. We watch as an electrical or radio station is overtaken by a green glow that shakes everything violently before suddenly cutting to black. Remember that green light? It's gonna be important for us later. The video ends with the night sky now mirror reflected. Something in this universe has fundamentally changed. From there, we fast forward by about a decade to the early 1980s, when a Central California-based company called Async begins researching electromagnetism. On May 10th, 1982, we see one such test of a strange electromagnetic device in the video Prototype. Over the next several years, Async would refine this prototype into Project KV-31, otherwise known as the Low Proximity Magnetic Distortion System. On July 2nd, 1988, Async performs a failed third test of the system, but it's their sixth test that really matters. On October 17th, 1989 at 5:04 p.m. Pacific, they power up the system one more time and successfully open a portal to the Backrooms. They have made first contact. However, this move has dire consequences. 5:04 p.m. was the exact time of a real-world magnitude 6.9 earthquake that hit California, killing 63 and injuring thousands more. All of this is confirmed in archival footage found in the
not the event, but I remember this from previous theories.
And that's not the worst of it. From that point forward, the world is just glitched. Small, unseen portals into and out of the backroom start popping up everywhere. People begin no-clipping through reality, never to be seen again. Starting in October of 1989, the number of missing persons reports skyrockets. This is confirmed in the video titled Missing Persons. Obvious video title is obvious. We soon learn that some of these portals are even big enough for entire cars to slip through, like we see in a secret, undated video that must come from around the same period. Meanwhile, back in the lab, Async begins to send in research teams.
That is absolutely
on February
terrifying.
3rd of 1990, they begin their first mission. Inside the Backrooms, this team of scientists discover the body of Nicholas Bolton, one of the people called out as having gone missing. Fun fact, the picture used for Bolton here is actually the senior photograph of Nathan Barnett, whom you might recognize as Dad from one of my other favorite creepy YouTube series that we've covered here on the channel several times. Go figure, it's almost like subscribing to this channel is a great way to learn about all the coolest series that you should be watching right now. Just a random thought that popped into my head, but you know, the subscribe button is down below this video in case you want to use it. Interestingly, Nicholas's body is covered in what appears to be some sort of black, moldy growth. 2 days later, on February 5th, in the video autopsy report, the medical report on Bolton's body shows that it contains a mutant strain of Hay bacillus bacteria, which is slowing decay of some parts of the body while completely overtaking others. The coroner questions Async about where they found this thing.
Mr. Beck, may I ask, where this subject came from?
Which Async must not have liked. During this video, a bunch of images flash across a CRT television, including one that states contract termination. Originally, I thought that this was a contract termination between Async and the US government, but I actually found a wider, clearer version of this exact image in a trailer that Kane uploaded back when the Backrooms was just a school project. And the version of that document reads employment contract termination. So I'm guessing that the doctor started asking too many questions and was let go as a result. Next up on our timeline is February 29th, 1990, and the upload informational video. Here we see Async send in another group of scientists. This is also the first appearance of actual named living characters. In the group, we have Marvin Lee and the camera operator Peter Tench. During their mission, Tench gets distracted by voices coming from an unseen party in a nearby hallway. He separates from the group briefly to investigate, but almost immediately he's met with a glitch that makes the rest of the team disappear.
Hey guys, can you hear this? Hey!
Without knowing it, Peter has jumped forward in time. We're gonna rejoin him in a minute, but back to the rest of the team. From Async's perspective, Peter's team didn't disappear, Peter did. He just vanished into thin air, and so the rest presumably returned to headquarters to report his disappearance. We see the fallout of Peter going missing less than a week later, March 5th, 1990, in the video Motion Detected. Freaked out by an employee disappearing with no explanation, Async creates a new enclosed control room just on the other side of the Backrooms portal. They also rig up motion sensing cameras near the entrance to track everything that's coming and going throughout the space. And it's a good thing they did too, because that night at 3:53 a.m., they capture the image of a dark, blobby shape moving across the ceiling. We don't know it yet at this point in the timeline, but later we're gonna learn that this is likely a black, gooey monster made of a mutant strain of bacteria, the very same bacteria that infected Nicholas Bolton. We know this because Kane has posted a picture of the creature on his Ko-Fi account labeled Bacteria. We are definitely gonna see more from that guy later in the timeline.
I just thought of something. So obviously these things are like bacteria, but the question stands, are they like a mega colony of like just normal sized bacteria that, you know, are working together? Or are they like, in fact, like some sort of like super cell? Because I know in the ocean, there are some places where like, you can find just like, these things are like about the size of a baseball, and they're just like giant green singular cells. It is so weird. And I wonder if they're like that, where they're like some sort of weird single cell that is like become bipedal. I don't know.
A little over 2 months later, on May 6th, 1990, another group of explorers are sent into the backrooms in the video Pitfalls. This team consists of an unnamed woman, 2 men named Mark and George, and Marvin Lee, now manning the camera. The party comes across a strange room with several holes in the floor and a door across the gap. One of the men carefully crosses the expanse, opens the door, and discovers a greenish glow. Instead of just saying what he sees, he calls over to Marvin to record it.
Marvin, get the camera over here.
Across?
Fine, just hurry.
But as Marvin tries to cross the room, he falls into one of the holes and to a lower level of the back rooms. There, he discovers an underground neighborhood complete with trees and houses and streetlights. But things are just a little bit off here. Houses are built strangely.
Signs
are mirror reversed. Deep inside one of the houses, Marvin finds a room where someone's clearly been living, but whoever was there, they're gone now. When he hears a voice that's crying out, he goes to investigate, only to be met with another bacteria monster. This one chasing Marvin back to the hole that he fell into.
That is not a person!
Thankfully, Marvin's team's able to pull him back to safety and he escapes. The next video report takes place immediately afterwards, with the team returning to Async's headquarters and sharing what Marvin found. This clearly concerns the Async staff, but because of the important upcoming presentation with the US government, they decide to just paper over the issue for the short term. A makeshift wall is constructed, sealing off the Pitfalls area for the time being as they further fortify their control room. 2 days later, on May 8th, 1990, we get the upload presentation, where Async hosts several government officials to pitch them A-Space, their vision for the backrooms, an infinite storage and living solution. And they're just pitching to any old US government officials. Notice the DOE watermark. These are representatives from the Department of Energy, including this guy right here who looks a lot like James Watkins, the real-world Secretary of Energy from this time period. During a video glitch back in Pitfalls, we see reverse text that reads, "to deceive the Fede," which likely extrapolates out to deceive the federal government. I'm betting that this is text of some sort of internal memo at Async, worrying about deceiving the DOE during these negotiations. Regardless of any concern though, the presentation goes well. We see Async talking to the DOE about contracts afterwards, and one scientist confirms in a secret video that everything went according to plan.
Actually, that went perfectly. We've got all the initial signatures, and the contract should be executed by next week.
Except, there was something that didn't go quite according to plan that day. Remember Peter Tench, the Async researcher who glitched out and disappeared? Well, after witnessing his squad disappearing into thin air, Peter tried his best to get back to Async's headquarters without any sort of guideline. And he finds all sorts of weird stuff on his little adventure, including a section of wall removed to reveal a secret area with forest print wallpaper, farm equipment, and the facade of a house. Eventually, Peter's able to make his way back to the backroom's exit, discovering the new control room that Async built after his disappearance. He's able to open it with his keycard, but it sets off a motion sensing alarm inside, at the exact same time that Async is in contract negotiations with the DOE. We straight up see Peter in the Async control room from a security camera's perspective in the background. Just so we're all clear about what's exactly happening here, this is over 2 months after Peter disappeared. When he glitched, he actually traveled forward in time. This really throws Async's leadership for a loop. In the hidden video recording 014, we hear a phone call between an Async researcher and his supervisor, Ivan Beck. Still on the same day, May 8th, 1990.
Ivan Beck?
Hold on. This isn't him, is it?
As this conversation continues, the image of a newspaper fades onto screen. When reversed, this headline clearly reads, "Fiery wreck beside Viney leaves one dead." Now, Viney is cut off and could refer to either a vineyard where they make wine or the town of Vineyard near Sacramento in Central California. Either way, we can gather from this headline and the tone of the conversation that Async believed Peter was dead, and that after he disappeared, they covered it up by staging a car accident so Peter's family wouldn't ask any questions. And when Peter realizes what's happened, that he's traveled into the future and that his family thinks that he's dead, probably doesn't react all that well to it. There was likely some conflict with Async's higher-ups, which resulted in Peter either escaping the facility back into the backrooms, or Async just launched him back into the backrooms because he was a security risk. One way or another, Peter winds up trapped back in the backrooms, which leads us to the next video, Reunion. It's a few weeks later, May 25th, 1990. After Marvin's encounter with the bacteria monster, Async uses a remote control rover to return to the Pitfalls room and confirm that it's safe. They send more explorers engineers and scientists in, creating a safe walkway to the door on the other side. Of course, we still don't get to see what's behind that door.
Unfortunately.
Async instead decides to send the cameraman Marvin along with Mark and another researcher to explore the area around the Pitfalls room. Now knowing that there's a dangerous creature that roams through these halls, Mark is armed with a shotgun to protect the group.
Wouldn't want to be on the other end of that.
You wouldn't want to be on the other end of any gun, Marvin.
Basic gun safety.
The trio head into a new area with no ceiling lights and floors made from white concrete epoxy instead of carpets. It's here that they discover evidence that someone's been living in this area. Tiles have been knocked off of the ceiling, seemingly as a trail to follow, and a map has been etched into one of the walls. However, before the group can really speculate about what's going on, they're ambushed by someone who grabs Mark's shotgun.
Peter?
Marvin?
It's our old friend Peter Tench once again.
Yep.
He's been living back here since his escape or banishment from Async.
Which is surprising
Peter
given that
laments
there's no food or
Async
water.
basically took his life from him, asking if they held a funeral for him, if his family thinks that he's dead. The group confirms that yes, they did hold a funeral. Everyone thinks he's dead. Async is clearly keeping the fact that Peter Tench is alive secret from basically everyone. Despite being held at gunpoint, Mark calls for backup, only for Peter to shoot him and kill him as the video ends. At this point, we hit a pretty significant time jump, with the next video being a secret archive video compiled over a year later in June of 1991. Nothing really noteworthy happens in it, I'm just including it for completionist's sake. If we want something really interesting though, we jump forward again to found footage number 2, taking place on August 19th, 1995. That is over 4 years after the archive video and over 5 since the events of Reunion. In found footage number 2, a girl in a suburban home discovers a small portal into the back rooms hidden in her garage.
God, it went into the...
After experimenting with it for a bit, she's pulled in. Inside the back rooms, she finds strange giant furniture, a locked door that she can't open, and perhaps most strangely, a car crashed into a wall. This is clearly a car that no-clipped in from the real world. Now, I originally thought that this was the car that no-clipped off the freeway that we saw in a Secret Numbers video, but Kane confirms that it's actually a different vehicle. Given that Kane also confirmed that the Numbers car wasn't Margaret Watson's car like I previously thought, that means that at least 3 cars have no-clipped into the back rooms. If I had a nickel for every time that happened,
You'd have 15
I'd have
cents.
3 nickels. It's not a lot, but it is weird that it's happened at least 3 times. Anyway, the girl follows a trail of blood from the driver of the car into an area of the back rooms that looks more residential, but she doesn't find a body. Instead, she finds a room overtaken by black vines. These aren't just any old, creepy plants, it's the bacteria monster, who comes to life and starts chasing the girl. She runs back through everything that she's explored thus far, jumping down into a lower level that resembles indoor swimming pools. Eventually, she winds up at a dead end, but before the monster can get her, the room is engulfed in a strange green light that causes the camera to black out. All of this leads us back to the very first video that Kane uploaded in the series, found footage number 1. In this video, recovered by Async on September 23rd, 1996, we see an indie movie director named Kane filming with his friends before he trips and no-clips into the back rooms. After exploring around for a bit, finding weird architecture, items that are completely out of place, and markings left by previous people who no-clipped in, Kane encounters another bacteria monster. He runs away, chased by the creature before being cornered and presumably killed. As the monster takes him, his camera falls down a hole, no-clipping back out of the back rooms and into the real world. And while that's the end of the main uploads of the series, there is one final one that I should include in the timeline. The secret upload home27647.mov, which likely takes place during the early 2000s. This is just a home video with some glitchy sections and strange imagery, which I'm going to touch on in a moment. How do I know that it takes place in the aughts? Thanks to this frame right here. See that TV over on the right? This sort of flat screen CRT television with the silver casing was popular back in the early to mid 2000s.
We had one that was black.
At least part of the video was filmed around that time. So, stepping back and looking at everything laid out here, the main story follows Async's experiments, its employees, and its impact on the world. That much is obvious. But the more important story here seems to be the one that's hidden under the surface. Remember the green light that's popped up a few times over the series? It appears most prominently towards the end of the timeline in found footage number 2, but remember, it was also the first thing that we see in the series chronologically right now. In Overflow, a near identical looking green light fills whatever station we're in the early 70s. Considering that the building from Overflow shakes pretty darn violently, similar to what we see happening in Async's headquarters during First Contact, I believe that this was some sort of portal opening at least briefly into the back rooms. And not just any type of portal either, a time portal. And given how similar it looks to what we see
now we're having time travel, are we?
Number 2, I wouldn't be surprised if she or her camera were sent back in time to the early 70s. things. I know this sounds crazy, but we already are aware that time acts strangely in the Backrooms. One of the major events of the series is Peter slipping forward in time by several months, so we know that things can be physically transported in time in this universe. We also know that things from the future can intrude in the past. In previous theories, we've discussed how one of the secret videos showed us a cough medicine commercial from the early 2000s interrupting a Simpsons episode that aired in the early 90s.
That's the downside. Now here's the good part.
We can also hear a news broadcast from 2015 during the Pitfalls video,
a
video that happened 25 years before that broadcast ever aired.
Do you think that your current president, President Castro, will come visit the United States?
Taking that to its logical conclusion, something physically entering the Backrooms and then exiting at some point in the past is entirely possible. Additionally, remember the name on that document from Overflow? Ivan Beck. Kane zooms in real close to make sure that we remember that one real good. Ivan Beck. Now, why does that name sound so familiar?
I'm trying to get hold of my supervisor, Ivan Beck.
Mr. Beck, may I ask where this subject came from?
Yep, Ivan Beck is a high-ranking Async official. I think that this girl from Found Footage 2, or at the very least her camera, made it back to the 1970s and into the hands of Ivan Beck and an early Async. That could be the whole inciting incident of the series, creating some sort of time loop paradox. Async gets a hold of this footage of the Backrooms, which then makes them want to explore it. They open the gateway, which breaks reality, and eventually this girl no-clips in, winding up back in time, starting the loop over. This might even explain the name of the video, Overflow. Time is literally overflowing and running over the edge. What's more, during their exploration, Async may have just found themselves another time portal. The only other time that we see a greenish glow in the series is behind the door across the room in Pitfalls. And get a load of this. As Marvin is falling down the hole in that video, we see a camera glitch and text hidden within that reads, quote, "While data could be inferred from the readings, nobody knew what would actually be found on the other side." What if what they found was a portal to another time and place? That would certainly fit our description. Either way, whatever Async is doing, it is bad for the rest of us. One of the stranger moments of the series up until now has been this extended shot from the very beginning of Reunion, focusing on a coffee cup with the letters MLML and some coordinates on the front. Now at first, I thought this might be some Roman numeral, but it's not actually a valid Roman numeral. You can't have MLM as a sequence in Roman numerals. So I opened up our trusty old Google Maps and typed in the coordinates, giving us the rough location of the real-world Moss Landing Marine Laboratories. So that solves the MLML mystery, and a bit more digging shows us that this logo is actually a riff on a real one that Moss Landing has used in the past. But the ocean messaging doesn't end with MLML. In fact, I believe that we can actually decode the biggest theme of the series based on a video just drowning in ocean metaphors. You may have noticed that I haven't mentioned one of the mainline videos of the Backrooms canon yet. I Remember. Well, that's largely because we don't know where this one slots into the timeline. There's no date associated with it, so there's really no place to put it. In fact, not really sure that the quote-unquote events that take place in this video are literal. The whole thing is just renderings of important places and people to Async and Backrooms lore, angled and reflected like Inception or Doctor Strange, all as a voiceover narration reads a poetic passage. It's more of an artistic piece really, but it is considered part of the Backrooms canon. And again, we get all the voiceover also has an ocean theme, just like that MLML reference. Just listen to what it says.
I had a home once, a manor overlooking the sea, but when skies turned dark, the house was taken by the sea, cast down to the seabed with all the other forgotten things.
All spoken as we see images of the ocean, but also really take in what this video's saying. The speaker had a home that sat beside the sea, but it collapsed into it and sank to the bottom. Forgotten. This is clearly a metaphor. We're not talking about houses and oceans, we're talking about the world and the Backrooms and Async's experiments making the world more and more unstable. Remember when I called out the last shot of Overflow? After the green light flares up and something from the Backrooms is sent back in time to here, we see the sky reflected at the earliest possible point in our timeline without any other Async experiments that we know of. But afterwards, we get more and more of that reflected imagery in I Remember as Async continues their experiments. This is even reflected in another line from I Remember.
But I remember fleeting shells sinking ever slowly, folding downwards into themselves, forever tearing along the seams of the sky until nothing remains except the eternal ghost.
The reflections, those are the seams along the sky. The tears in reality as everything starts to fall apart. This might have even happened before in a previous
Async
reality or
doomed the
simulation of our
universe.
world. In found footage number 2, we see parts of a home inside the back rooms as the girl explores the area, including this part
Maybe
here
handprint?
with a strange banister and railway in front of an empty room. Here's the thing. This is almost identical to a room that we see in the secret Home 27647 video. Notice the unique bars on the railing? The way there's an open-air entrance in the room behind it and a door off the right wall? This is the same
Sorry about that. Had to get called away for a second. Let's actually finish this, shall we?
architecture, but one is in the back rooms and one is in our real world. Want more proof? The girl takes a prolonged look at this painting before the bacteria monster wakes up and starts chasing her. And in the secret video, we again get a prolonged look at that very same painting in the home. And remember, based on the TV we see here, this video was likely taken in the 2000s, several years before Found Footage 2 takes place. So how could these details be in the back rooms now? Is it another time loop situation? Maybe. Or maybe it's because these are from previous iterations of our world, of the simulation that was destabilized and collapsed into the back rooms. In other words, the house that fell into the sea. There's a map shown in the Home 27647 video of the Ptolemaic system, a geocentric model of the universe that suggests that the Earth is the unmoving center of everything. And isn't it interesting that this very specific map that Kane chose to include in this video is very yellow? The last line, and I remember, is, "You have always been here." Everything revolves around the back rooms, whether it be in a time loop or a simulation or both. It's the center of everything in the world, and Async's meddling has doomed the world to collapse into the back rooms once again, the house to fall back into the sea once again. You have always been here. In this series, in this world, the back rooms has always been a part of it. We're just the layer on top waiting to collapse down into it. And laying out the story Kane's trying to tell here doesn't feel like our world has that much time left. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut.
Well, if any of this is true, jeez, I mean, like, I don't see what you could do about literal dimensions collapsing into each other, but still. Actually, you know what? That reminds me of it was a sci-fi story I once heard. Forgetting what it's called, but sort of in it, alien races had weaponized, like, destroying dimensions. Apparently, later in the series, it's revealed that when the universe was first created, it had like 10 dimensions. It actually had like 10 dimensions, and the speed of light was literally infinite. So the universe was a much, as they call it, a much more beautiful place because you could see the light from every star in the universe. But as alien species went to war, they actually made weapons that caused the number of dimensions to begin collapsing. And the only ones that could survive were the ones that modified themselves to exist in those new versions of the universe where that had like one less dimension. And with each dimension that was destroyed, the speed of light decreased like lower and lower and lower until you get to what is now, what is there nowadays, with the speed of light being whatever it is, I'm forgetting at the moment. And at one point, the solar system is destroyed because another species does that to our solar system, and it's basically the beginning point of a universe where it only has 2 dimensions instead of 3. Oh God, that is terrifying. But anyway, that was a side tangent, not really connected to the Backrooms at all. Yeah, but anyway. So, as usual, original is linked in the description. And, yeah, if you liked, leave a like, subscribe if you have not, and I hope you guys liked it. Goodbye.